Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive, a place where forgotten stories breathe again, where whispers crawl from the cracks of reality, and fear finds a voice. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely, because some tales were never meant to be told. Tonight's story is titled The Director's Cut. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. A casting call too real. I don't know how much time I have left, so if you're hearing this, please don't look it up. Don't search the name. Don't click the link if it finds you. Just let it fade into static. But if you must know, I'll start at the beginning. It all began with a film contest I almost forgot I entered. Back in October, during midterms, I submitted a 2-minute short film for extra credit in my college's intro to editing class. It was nothing special, just a silent black and white piece about a man stuck in a room with no door. Very student film energy. I called it Exit Strategy. A few days after uploading it to a public server set up by the professor, I got an email. No subject line. Just a blank message with a Vimeo link and one line in the body. We saw your work. You have potential. Glass Veil Studios. I never heard of them. No website. No socials. But the message wasn't spam. It was sent from a domain with a cryptic, real-sounding address. contact@glassveil.film. That weird .film domain made it feel theatrical somehow. I was curious. Of course I clicked. The video was titled Auditions, in all caps. It opened with the sound of static and a flicker of a stage curtain, red velvet, like some old theater screen you'd find in a crumbling opera house. Then came text, white on black, typed like an old silent film. We are seeking new talent for an upcoming experiment in fear. Then a montage started. Flashing images of people standing in what looked like audition rooms. Bare walls, bright sterile lights. Their faces were blank, confused. Some tried to speak, but there was no sound. Others just stood there as if frozen. Then came a quick cut, like a subliminal flash, of something much darker. A person in a white mask tilting their head slowly. I paused, rewound frame by frame. The mask had no eye holes, just a flat porcelain face and a faint red smear across its lips like a clown's smile drawn in blood. After that, the screen turned black and a line appeared. Do you want to be seen? Then a button. Click to submit. I know what you're thinking. I should have closed the tab, nuked my computer, and gone back to editing B-roll footage of cafeteria interviews. But I clicked it. All it asked for was my name, email, and a headshot. No fees, no contracts. It felt more like an indie project than a real casting call. I hit send and forgot about it until 3 days later. I was walking home from my part-time job at the campus library when I saw the envelope. It was shoved into my dorm mailbox, thick, black, with no return address. My name was printed on the front in gold foil. Inside was a small SD card and a single sheet of paper, typed in the same font as the audition video. You've been shortlisted. View your instructions. That's when I should have stopped. Instead, I ran upstairs, popped the SD card into my laptop, and found a single file titled real1_roads.mp4. It opened with that same red curtain, but this time it parted, and there I was, me, on screen. Footage of me walking to work that very morning, looking down at my phone, waiting for a crosswalk signal, sipping gas station coffee. The camera followed me from across the street, maybe from a car window. The angles were smooth, cinematic, almost impossibly so. Then came a second camera angle, inside the library. The footage showed me shelving books, yawning, picking my nose. The timestamp matched exactly 9:24 a.m., right when I remembered restocking the psychology section. There was no possible way they could have filmed that. No cameras were allowed behind circulation. But there I was, on screen, living my life, from a dozen feet away. My skin went cold. The video ended with a title card. "You've been seen. Your scene begins soon." I tried to show my roommate Carl, but when I plugged the SD card back in, the file was gone. Not corrupted, not deleted, just not there. He didn't believe me, obviously. Thought I'd dreamed it. Or worse, that I was pulling some experimental prank for a film class. But I know what I saw. And later that night, things got stranger. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of scratching, like nails against glass. My dorm room only has one window, and it overlooks the alley between campus housing. I peeled back the curtain and saw nothing but dark, but the sound kept going. I looked again. That's when I saw it. A white mask just barely visible in the corner of the glass. Perfectly still. I blinked. Gone. The next morning I got another message. No subject. No body. Just a new video link. Titled simply, "Introducing Elliot Rhodes." I didn't click. Not then. But I should have. Because by the time I did, it had already gotten out. And I wasn't just being filmed anymore. I was being written. Part 2. The curtain rises. I didn't sleep much after the mask. I convinced myself it was a stress hallucination, maybe some weird trick of the light or a sticker someone put on the outside of the window as a prank. But deep down I knew better. I skipped my Friday classes and spent the day digging. I searched everything I could about Glass Veil Studios. Nothing. Not even a single hit on regular search engines. No Reddit threads, no casting call archives, not even some ghost entry on IMDb. But when I used a dark web browser and searched the exact phrase Glass Veil Studios, something came up. A forum thread. Abandoned. Last post dated 2019. The title read, "Anybody else get approached by Glass Veil?" Only one reply. Don't answer them. Don't watch what they send. Don't audition. I saw my sister vanish frame by frame. User_obscured53. That was it. I tried messaging the user, but their account had been deleted. The forum itself looked long dead. Half the images broken, threads overrun by spam. Still, I bookmarked the page. Later that night, I got another package. No return address. Just my name again. Typed this time. Inside was a DVD, handwritten label, "Reel 2 raw footage." I hesitated longer this time. But curiosity, fear, and maybe some part of me that wanted to be scared, I don't know. I slipped it into my old laptop, the one that still had a disk drive. It autoplayed. This time there was no red curtain, just static and breathing. The screen slowly faded into an image of a narrow hallway, dimly lit, stained yellow wallpaper peeling off the walls. The camera was shaky, handheld. There was no music, no voiceover. Just the sound of bare feet slapping against wooden floorboards. The person behind the camera walked through 3 different rooms. Each one was a mess. Rotting furniture, broken mirrors, a kitchen with every drawer pulled out and hanging loose. It felt more like a crime scene than a set. Then the camera turned to face a mirror, and for a split second I saw something that nearly made me fall out of my chair. It was me, standing behind the cameraman. But it couldn't have been live footage. I was watching this, not filming it, and yet my reflection was clear. I even remembered the shirt I had on that day, a faded blue hoodie with a tear at the sleeve, the same one I was wearing now. The next morning, I went to the library early. I needed answers, or at least a place that didn't smell like cold sweat and paranoia. While there, I remembered something. A guy named Damon, a senior in the film department, had once mentioned a creepy underground student project he'd worked on as a freshman. something that never got shown even in class. I found him on campus and asked if he remembered anything called Glass Veil Studios. His eyes went wide. "Dude, don't mess with that shit," he said, stepping back. "You're not serious, right?" I told him I was, that they'd contacted me, that I'd seen myself in a mirror on a video I never filmed. His face drained of color. "I thought it was fake," he whispered. "We all did." He told me about a project in 2021. An anonymous filmmaker posted flyers around campus calling for actors for a boundary-pushing horror experience. He and 4 others signed up. They were given scripts with only stage directions. No lines, just phrases like, "Walk into frame," "React but don't speak," "When the lights go out, stay still." The shoot lasted all night in an abandoned theater 10 miles out of town. Damon said he bailed halfway through when he realized there was no camera crew, just a single figure sitting in the shadows, scribbling in a notebook. He never saw the footage, but 2 of the students disappeared the week after, vanished without a trace. One was filed as a runaway. The other, well, her parents stopped talking to the press after a few weeks. That's when I told Damon about the video and the mask. His jaw clenched. "You need to leave it alone," he said. "They don't make movies. They unmake people." Back in my room, I checked my inbox. A new message had arrived. The subject line, "Your trailer is live." The link led to a page on a site I'd never heard of, veilstage.net. The page title was "Now Playing Elliot Rhodes." I hit play. This one was different. It began like a normal documentary, grainy shots of my campus, my dorm, even my editing bay in the media lab. But something was wrong. The shots were from angles I'd never seen before. Drone footage from inside buildings. Camera angles that would have required physical access to my locked room. There were audio clips too. Me talking in class, mumbling to myself, humming in the shower. Even a voicemail I'd left my mom a week ago. Every moment was cut with strange title cards. Protagonist, Elliot Rhodes. Act I, Discovery. Act 2, Escalation. Then came the most chilling one. Act 3, Erasure in Progress. I slammed the laptop shut, but the audio kept playing. That night I unplugged everything. Laptop, phone, router. Slept with the lights on and my hoodie pulled over my eyes. Still didn't help. I had the worst dream. I was standing on a stage. Bright white spotlight. Couldn't move. Couldn't speak. My mouth was sewn shut. A voice from the darkness whispered, "Let's try that take again." You blinked. I woke up choking. My hands were trembling and in my fist was a torn piece of paper. Typed on it in the same old font. "Every great film needs a strong final scene. Don't keep us waiting." Part 3. Playback loop. Monday morning. Campus was crawling with flyers. At first, I thought it was one of those viral campaigns for a student film, some art major trying to stir up a buzz. But then I saw one close-up. A black background. My face. Still framed mid-blink, washed out, grainy, like a photo taken from an old VHS tape. Beneath it, in bold white letters, "Now screening, Elliot Rhodes, a Glass Veil production." There were no QR codes, no web addresses, just that line. I tore down everyone I saw. Must have been over a dozen just on my side of campus. When I got to the cafeteria, one was taped to the napkin dispenser. Another was inside the men's bathroom mirror, between the glass and the backing. I couldn't tear that one down. It was inside the mirror. I ran straight to my advisor, Professor Langston, and told her everything. The casting call, the strange videos, the stalking. She listened, arms crossed, quiet. Then she spoke. "I'll be honest, Elliot. This sounds like performance art. I begged her to check the site, but when I tried pulling it up, veilstage.net, I got a 404 error. She smiled like I'd just told her I believed in ghosts. If someone is harassing you, she said, go to campus security. Right, because that had worked out so well before. That night I got another message, not from Glass Veil. This one came from a burner address, realburned88@mail.proton.me. Subject, you need to talk to Marta. Just that. The body of the email was blank, except for an attachment, a screenshot of a YouTube thumbnail. Blurry footage of a girl staring straight into the camera, lit by harsh fluorescent light. Title, I was almost in a Glass Veil film, 14 views. The channel only had one video. It was still online, but unlisted. I clicked. The video opened with a woman in her early 20s, wearing a hoodie pulled tight around her face. Her eyes were sunken, the skin under them bruised from insomnia or something worse. She looked like she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. My name is Marta Reyes, she began, or at least it used to be. She kept glancing off camera like she expected someone to come through the door at any second. I was part of a short film project in 2020. It wasn't called Glass Veil then, it was just a guy named Nico with a script and a camera. Said it was a psychological realism piece. No dialogue, no second takes, just raw footage. She swallowed. It didn't seem strange at first. We shot in a motel room, then an abandoned train car. But things started changing. She held up a photo, faded Polaroid. It showed her standing in front of a window. The strange part? Her reflection was facing the wrong way. My footage was being rewritten, she said. Scenes I never filmed appeared in the final edit. Sounds that didn't exist in the room, whispers, laughter, piano music. Then her voice cracked. The worst part? My family said I started talking like someone else, using phrases I'd never used. I even dreamed of places I've never been. The film got inside me. It's still there. She leaned closer to the camera. If they contact you, don't respond. They're not people. They're editors. They cut away everything until only their version of you remains. Static crackled at the end. The screen went black, and then I saw it again. The mask, just for a second. A frame spliced in after the video ended, right before autoplay kicked in. I knew I had to find her. After a full day of tracking usernames and deep searching backlogs of old festival rosters, I found something. A comment on a message board for victims of online stalking. Dated a year ago. The username matched Marta's. She listed a P.O. box in Newark, New Jersey. It was a long shot, but at that point I was ready to take the ride. I booked a Greyhound ticket for the weekend. Told Carl I was visiting an aunt. He didn't press. 3 days later, I stood outside a tiny apartment above a check cashing place on Ferry Street. I knocked once, then again. Nothing. But just as I turned to leave, I heard a click. The door creaked open. A chain held it partially closed. One eye peeked out, bloodshot, untrusting. Marta? I asked. I'm Elliot. You posted the video. Silence. I think they're filming me, I added. The chain rattled. Then the door opened. Her place was dark. Curtains drawn. TV unplugged. All the mirrors covered with garbage bags. She poured me instant coffee with trembling hands. I shouldn't have put that video online, she said. I keep thinking they'll punish me for it. I told her everything about the flyers, the masked figure, the videos that saw me before I even lived them. She listened, eyes locked to mine, nodding slowly. They follow a pattern, she said. The script is always the same. First they watch you, then they direct you, then they cut you. What does that mean? She looked away. It means you don't leave with all the pieces. I asked how she got out. "I didn't," she whispered. "They stopped filming." "That's not the same." She showed me a scar behind her ear. Long, jagged, poorly healed. "They took something. I don't know what. My dreams aren't mine anymore. My memories glitch." Marta grabbed a stack of old envelopes from under her couch, each one marked with a date. Inside were Polaroids, flash drives, tiny fragments. "They still send me footage sometimes," she said. "But the people in it, they're not me. They just look like me." As I left, she grabbed my wrist. "Whatever they offer, however far they take you, do not let them finish your film." Then she pressed something into my palm. A single frame of 8mm film. It showed me, or someone wearing my face, lying in a hospital bed, eyes open, mouth sewn shut. Part 4. Scene 1, Take 1. I didn't sleep much after meeting Marta. How could I? Even after I left her apartment, I felt like I hadn't really left. My mind kept replaying what she said, especially that final warning. Do not let them finish your film. But deep down, I knew they already had a script, and I was already on page 3. That night, back at my dorm, I found a letter slipped under my door. Black envelope. Same font as before. Inside was a single white card, thick like a wedding invitation, embossed in silver foil. "You are invited to a private screening. Location, Orpheum Theater, exit 12, East Ridge. Time, 12 a.m. Friday. Dress code, black. No RSVP. No contact info. Just coordinates and a time." I googled the Orpheum Theater. Nothing came up, but the coordinates pointed to an abandoned structure just outside East Ridge, a half-burned auditorium closed since the early 2000s. One news article mentioned a fire. Another said something about unregulated experimental performances. That was all I needed. I borrowed Carl's car, told him I had to see a girl. Technically true. I just didn't mention she might not be alive anymore. Friday night, I drove down the dark interstate with the invitation on the passenger seat, the silver letters glowing faintly in the dashboard light. As I approached exit 12, my radio cut to static. Then a voice spoke, not like a broadcast, more like a whisper piped directly through the speakers. "Drive safely, Elliot. Your audience is waiting." I nearly swerved into a guardrail. I turned the radio off, but the static kept hissing even with the dial unplugged. The Orpheum was worse than I imagined. Blackened walls, collapsing roof, half the windows smashed through like they'd been punched out from the inside. I parked across the street and approached on foot. No other cars, no lights, just silence. But as I stepped through the rusted side door, the air shifted. It was warm, too warm. Inside, the theater looked untouched. Red velvet curtains, rows of pristine seats, chandelier glowing overhead like it had never burned. And at the very back of the stage, a director's chair, empty. A spotlight snapped on, bathing the chair in white light. Then came the voice. It didn't echo. It didn't even feel like sound. It was in me. Scene 1, Take 1. Then came the clapperboard snap. Somewhere behind me, a projector whirred to life. I turned. A screen lowered from the ceiling. The footage began immediately. It showed me from earlier that day, waking up, brushing my teeth, walking to the car. Then more footage I'd never seen. Me parking, walking toward the theater. And then, now, it was live. The screen showed me standing in the theater watching myself. Then the screen split in two. On the left, me. On the right, a version of me with no face. Just smooth skin where the eyes and mouth should be. The masked me lifted a hand and waved. I didn't, but the screen version did. The real me was already behind. I ran toward the side exit. The door opened to a hallway I hadn't seen before. Black walls, fluorescent lights flickering. The air smelled like old tape and mold. A sign above the hallway read, Soundstage 1, Memory Capture in Progress. My breath caught. I kept going. The hallway stretched longer than the building should have allowed. My footsteps echoed strangely, like they weren't mine. I passed doors labeled things like Bureau, Flashbacks, Alternate Endings Scrapped. Each one had a tiny window, but when I looked inside, I only saw static. Then I reached the final door. Red. Set. Hospital Bed Recreation. Talent, Elliot Rhodes. I hesitated. The handle was warm. When I pushed the door open, I nearly collapsed. Inside was the same image I'd seen on Marta's film strip. Me, lying in a hospital bed. Eyes open, mouth sewn shut. 4 bags full of black fluid dripped into my arm. A single camera hovered above my head, mechanical, hanging from a rig that moved like an insect. The worst part? I blinked. The me in the bed blinked back. Then came the director's voice again. Clearer now. Right behind me. Good. You're emoting. Keep going. I turned and saw them for the first time. Not a person. A silhouette wearing a tattered suit of black film reels, their face a rotating lens shutter, clicking open and shut with each word. You've been so patient, Elliot, but now it's time for your final scene. I backed away. I didn't agree to this, I said. My voice cracked. The director tilted their head. You submitted your headshot. That's consent. Suddenly, alarms rang. The director stepped back, flickering like bad tape. A door behind the hospital set burst open, and Marta stood there, eyes wild, holding a crowbar. Cut, she screamed. Cut the damn scene. Before I could react, she smashed the hovering camera. Sparks flew. The lights above dimmed. The set collapsed in on itself like paper. The director let out a mechanical screech and vanished in a burst of static. Then, blackness. I woke up in the grass outside the Orpheum. It was daylight. The building looked abandoned again. Burnt. Empty. No lights. No set. No screen. Marta was gone. So was the invitation. But in my pocket was a new item. A film canister, labeled in marker. The director's cut, unfinished. Part 5. Script notes in the margins. I thought escaping the Orpheum meant it was over. It wasn't. In fact, I don't think it ever started until that moment. I got back to campus the next morning. At least I think I did. Something was off. People I passed in the hallway paused mid-step, just for a second, like someone had hit pause and forgot to unfreeze them. And then there were the cuts, literal cuts in the air. Thin white lines, jagged and vertical, like someone had sliced reality with a razor. They hung in place for a split second, shimmered, and then vanished. But every time they did, I'd lose a memory, not a big one, a name, a detail. Someone's face, gone, like my life was being edited. I tried calling Marta. No answer. Her number was dead. When I looked up her YouTube video again, it was gone. Channel scrubbed clean. But something else was there in its place. A new upload, titled, Bloopers, Elliot Rhodes. I clicked play. It was me, stammering during a presentation. Slipping on wet pavement, crying in a public bathroom 2 years ago after my dad died. Stuff no one ever filmed, stuff I never told anyone. At the end, the words appeared. Even mistakes are part of the performance. I shut my laptop and pulled the film canister from my desk drawer. Still labeled, the director's cut, unfinished. I had no way of watching it. I didn't even own a reel-to-reel projector. But when I held the canister up to my ear, I swear I could hear whispering inside. and every time I opened the drawer, the label seemed a little different. Sometimes it said, "The final scene," or "Retake scheduled." Once it simply read, "Cut him out." I went back to the media lab that night and found the oldest guy I knew there, Professor Hammock. He taught film history and was the only one who still knew how to work analog gear. When I showed him the canister, he turned pale. "This isn't Kodak," he said. "It's something else." We loaded it up. The film was silent, black and white, and full of jitter. First, it showed a boy in a hospital bed. Then an empty theater. Then me. But not me now. Me as a kid around 10 holding a camcorder, aiming it at the mirror. The mirror version blinked first, then reached out. Professor Hammock stepped back. "Stop it," he said. I didn't, because at the very end of the reel, there was a frame that chilled me more than anything I'd seen before. It was my dorm room. From above, me sitting on the floor. A line of text at the bottom. Scene 47. Destruction of Self A, looping enabled. "Where did you get this?" Hammock asked, breath shaking. "I didn't," I replied. "It found me." That night I dreamed of scripts, not digital files, real paper. Thousands of pages floating in the void, covered in handwritten lines. Stage directions, camera notes, character descriptions that changed as I read them. My name was on every page, but not as actor, as proposed deletion. When I woke up, my phone was ringing. No caller ID. I answered. The voice was calm, rhythmic, like a metronome learned to speak. "Mr. Rhodes, we are finalizing production. This is your final rewrite. Please report to location _00 for final edits." I didn't respond. The voice continued. "Failure to comply will result in continuity violations. Loss of self is currently 38%. Please proceed before cutoff." Then silence. My phone powered itself off. When I turned it back on, all my contacts were gone, except one, the director. No number, just a red circle where the profile photo should be. I called it. Just once. A voice answered, low and crackling. "Have you memorized your lines?" I hung up. That same night, my reflection didn't sync with me anymore. I raised my hand, it lagged. I blinked, my reflection smiled instead. I smashed the mirror, but the smile didn't leave my mind. Back in the media lab, I dug through the university archive, looking for anything related to Glass Veil. Nothing. But I did find an old film professor's journal. Someone named Dr. Veronica Albrecht taught experimental cinema in the 1980s. Vanished in 1989 after reporting non-consensual footage being injected into the world. One of her final entries. They're not filmmakers. They're editors of reality. They cut what doesn't serve the story. When they edit you, they don't ask permission. My script keeps changing. I fear I'm being rewritten into absence. I found her faculty photo. She looked eerily like Marta. Or maybe Marta looked like her. Or maybe both were the same person, edited across decades. I started noticing background actors in real life. People who didn't blink. Who were always facing me no matter where I stood. A janitor that mopped the same square of floor every time I passed. A woman at the bus stop reading the same page of the same book day after day. Extras. Part of the set. One of them mouthed something to me once, but no sound came out. I read his lips. They're rewriting the world. I knew what I had to do. This was a story, they needed an ending. But if I could find the original script or whatever passed for it, maybe I could stop it. Or rewrite it. Or burn it all. The canister pulsed faintly on my desk. This wasn't a film anymore. It was a possession. A performance. And I was the one still trapped in the frame. Part 6. location _00. They didn't give me an address, just a string of coordinates. But the moment I typed them into my GPS, it buzzed hard enough to jump off the table. The screen flashed white. Then a message appeared. Navigating to location _00. Headphones recommended. That wasn't normal GPS behavior, but nothing about this has been normal for a long time. The coordinates led me 3 hours north into the mountains. No road signs, no lights, just dense woods and fog that swallowed headlights like breath. Eventually, I came to a dirt path. At the end of it stood a crumbling concrete structure with no windows, half submerged into the slope like it was trying to crawl back underground. A rusted sign above the door read, "Storage Unit A, Cinema Reclamation." Underneath, a line in smaller text barely legible. All deleted footage to be returned here. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the air was damp and smelled of vinegar and old tape. I stepped into a wide chamber, maybe a former storage warehouse. Hundreds of film reels were stacked on rusted shelves, labeled in chalk. Take 12, rejected. Scene 38, redacted. Subject 0045, uncompliant. One reel was still spinning on a projector. Footage played against a stained brick wall. It showed a girl, 15 maybe, standing in a hallway. She was sobbing, clutching a script to her chest. Every few seconds, her body glitched, jumping backward a few frames like an old VHS stuck on loop. The reel clicked, restarted. Same scene, same girl, same sobbing. She was trapped in her own footage. I turned away. At the far end of the room, a stairwell descended deeper, each step humming with that same static I'd come to dread. Carved into the concrete wall beside it, "Edit Suite, authorized talent only." I went down. The hallway below looked like no film studio I'd ever seen. It was alive. Pipes pulsed like arteries. The floor creaked like breath. Walls were covered in reels that turned on their own, bleeding strips of film that pooled onto the floor like unraveling intestines. I passed dozens of small chambers. Inside each one, a screen, a single chair, and someone watching themselves die on loop. One guy kept reaching for the screen, screaming silently, but his hands passed through. The screen was behind glass, a mirror maybe, and he was the reflection. Finally, I reached a heavy door marked Final Cut Room. It opened before I could knock. Inside was a circular chamber, walls covered with monitors stacked from floor to ceiling, each one playing different footage. One showed me brushing my teeth. Another showed me falling asleep as a child. Another showed me at a funeral I don't remember attending. At the center of the room stood the director. Same figure as before, tattered suit of film, shutter face rotating slowly, click, click, click. He gestured to a chair. I sat, not because I wanted to, but because something in me already had. "You've made it to the third act," the director said. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You resisted longer than most." I swallowed. "What do you want from me?" The monitors glitched in unison, then showed Marta, except she was younger. Her hair was longer. She was smiling. "She was your test audience," he said. "But you, Elliot, you are the rewrite." He stepped closer. Film reels spun behind him like wings. Every story needs a rewrite, a cleaner version, a tighter narrative, less noise. I stood up. "I'm not your character." The director tilted his head. "You submitted your footage. We simply fixed your arc." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the canister, the director's cut, unfinished. "Then explain this," I said. He stared. Then he laughed. A low, glitchy distortion like corrupted audio. "Ah, the rough cut. Still clinging to unrendered ego." "Do you want to see what happens if we don't finish your scene?" He snapped his fingers. All the screens turned black. Then they lit up, every one of them showing different versions of me. One was smiling and nodding, robotic. One was sobbing in a white room. One was made entirely of static. "These are the test renders," he said. "Fragments of your role. Each one trying to become the real you. But only one version gets the final cut." I backed away. "No, you don't get to decide who I am." The director stopped. Something flickered in his form, frames skipping, lines of code bleeding through. "You misunderstand," he said. "You're not the protagonist. You're the editor. We're only here because you keep pressing play." The film canister in my hand began to heat. I dropped it. It burst open, spilling glowing film onto the floor, frames shimmering like wet glass. Each frame showed a moment of my life, but all of them ended the same. Fade to black. I looked at the monitors again. They no longer showed my memories. They showed scenes waiting to happen. A funeral, a suicide, a static TV in an empty room. The director extended his hand. "Finish the cut. Make it clean." And for the first time I said no. I lunged toward the nearest reel and pulled. The film snapped. Sparks flew. The monitors blinked out. The director shrieked, his form melting into strips of film that slithered like snakes across the floor. The room shook. Reality stuttered. One final screen stayed on. It showed me, back in my dorm room, typing, "Finishing this." And then the text appeared on the screen. Scene 48, the truth, status in progress. Part 7, the other edits. I came to on the floor of my dorm. No alarms, no film canister, no director, just me. And the laptop screen still open. It was recording. I didn't remember starting a screen recording or opening my notes app, but there it was, text being typed in real time. Scene 49, return from the cut. Subject appears intact. Slight fragmentation. Recommend final review. I slammed the laptop shut. It didn't help. The screen turned back on. The camera activated. My reflection stared back, but something was wrong. He didn't move when I did. He just watched. The days that followed were a blur. I tried going to class, but people didn't recognize me. Literally. I sat next to Carl in media history. He looked at me like I was a stranger. When I said his name, he flinched like I'd said something wrong. The professor handed back assignments. My name wasn't on the roster. Even my ID badge, blank. No name, just a picture of me. But not me. The eyes were too wide, too bright, like someone had cranked the exposure on my soul. The edits were deepening. One night, I found another Elliot in my room, standing at the foot of my bed. Same clothes, same height, same face, but his eyes were hollow, and when he smiled, it didn't reach anywhere. "Cut's not clean yet," he whispered. Then he stepped backward into the closet and vanished like a frame being erased. I tore the closet apart. Nothing, except a sticky note on the inside of the door. "We are still sinking. Please wait." I started losing time. Once I blinked and found myself in the dining hall, holding a tray of food I didn't order. Another time, I woke up in the lecture hall mid-presentation, classmates staring as I recited lines I didn't write. The screen behind me showed footage of me saying those lines in different clothes, in a different room. Somebody clapped. Only one. The director's voice echoed faintly from the speakers. Continuity restored. I started seeing other versions of me. Across the street. In classroom windows. Walking past me dressed like I used to a year ago. One looked older. One had no mouth. All of them avoided eye contact except one. He stopped in front of me on the library stairs, tilted his head, and handed me a script, handwritten, spiral bound, titled, "The Director's Cut, Final Draft." He didn't speak. He just pointed to the final page. It was blank, except for one line. "You finish it, or we do." Back in my room, I flipped through the rest of the script. It was everything. My life, word for word. Conversations I'd forgotten. Dreams I'd had as a child. Arguments, regrets. But every scene was marked with corrections in red ink. Too emotional, flattened delivery. Cut hesitation, tighten beat. Unnecessary pause, delete. Even my memories had notes. My entire life had been workshopped, rewritten, refined, until nothing original remained. And then the door opened. Without a knock, without a sound, the director stepped through. But this time, he wasn't made of film. He wore my face, the one from the mirror, from the tape, from the version that never blinked. "We've tried your version, Elliot," he said, voice gentle now. "The messy one, the raw cut. But stories need shape. They need closure." I backed away, script in hand. "No," I said, "this isn't a story. It's my life." He smiled. "No, Elliot, it's ours." He raised his hand. All the windows in the room flickered, turned into screens. Each one showed a different timeline. One where I jumped off a bridge. One where I became a teacher. One where I never opened the first email. "The audience prefers clarity," he said. "Let's give them an ending they'll understand." He reached for the script. I pulled out a lighter. His smile faltered. "You wouldn't." I lit the edge of the script. The fire spread quickly, eating through my life page by page. Smoke filled the room. The director screamed, not with rage but with static. High-pitched, glitching like old film melting in a projector. The walls flickered. The other Elliot screamed too, behind the screens, clawing at the glass. The mirrors cracked. The closet door burst open and a flood of shredded film poured out. I fell backward into darkness. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought it was over. I woke up in a blank white room. One chair, one camera, one microphone, a sheet of paper on the floor, typed in courier font. Scene 50, testimony. Tell them everything. I looked into the camera, took a breath, and began. Part 8. For a better audience. The room was silent, too silent. Not even the hum of a camera or the whir of electronics, just stillness, like the air itself was holding its breath. I stared at the microphone on the floor, then at the paper. Scene 50, testimony. Tell them everything. I reached for it. The microphone flickered on, the red light glowing steady. A familiar voice spoke through the ceiling, neutral, measured. Begin when ready. I cleared my throat. My name is Elliot Rhodes. I'm not an actor. I didn't audition. I never wanted to be a part of this. The wall shifted, flickered, projected behind me, looping memories. Me crying as a child in the backseat of a car. Me laughing alone at a dumb joke I made in middle school. Me failing my first big project. Nothing extraordinary, nothing cinematic, just human. The voice interrupted. That's not your best take. Let's try again. With more emotional clarity. The mic cut out, then back on. Begin when ready. I stood up. No, I said. The room darkened. The voice was no longer mechanical. It was the director. You misunderstand. This isn't punishment. This is preservation. The walls retracted, revealing a vast theater beyond the white room. Rows and rows of red seats, all occupied by figures, motionless, featureless, silhouettes of people. thousands of them, their heads faced forward, their hands folded neatly in their laps, and every one of them was watching me. "You've been broadcasting for some time," the director said, now seated at the far back of the auditorium. "They've seen every version, every edit, every mistake." I stepped forward. "What do they want?" His shutter face clicked open slowly. "Only what all audiences want, the truth. But you made it complicated, fragmented, so we tried to help. Clean the noise, simplify the narrative." I laughed, dry and bitter. "You erased my life. We archived it. You were going to die anyway, Elliot. This way they can remember you." The audience began to clap. Slow, hollow, perfectly synchronized. My throat tightened. "I'm not real to them," I said. "I'm just a show." "Everything is a show," the director replied. "Some just last longer." A door opened behind me, flooded with white light. A final title card flickered in the air above it. "Scene 51, fade out. Final option available." I turned back to the audience. They didn't blink, didn't shift. They just stared, unblinking, unchanging, watching. "You can walk through the door," the director offered, "and we'll cut to credits. Everyone forgets. We store the footage. You never existed. Or stay, finish it on your terms. Let them see the real ending." My hand shook. I pulled the torn remains of the old script from my pocket, burned around the edges, blackened and fragile. I held it up. "This was my life," I said. "But it wasn't a story. It wasn't neat. It didn't arc the way you wanted." "Precisely," he said. "And now you get to choose the final scene." I took the microphone, lifted it to my lips, and spoke. I was scared. I wanted to be seen, but not like this. I looked at the audience, at the void of faces. "I'm not your ending." I dropped the mic, and then I did something they weren't expecting. I walked into the audience. Seat by seat, row by row, I looked into every faceless watcher, and with each one I touched, they flickered, glitched. Some screamed, quiet, high-pitched static that bled into the air like glass cracking. Others slumped forward, their forms dissolving into film-reel confetti. By the time I reached the front row, the theater was empty. The director stood alone, flickering. "Wait, this is unscripted," he whispered. "This is not allowed." I stepped up to the stage. "The truth isn't clean," I said, "and the best stories aren't perfect." He reached for me, but his fingers passed through like dust. "Then what are you?" he rasped. I smiled. "Unedited." And I walked into the projector beam. The reel snapped. The screen burned white. The film melted, and the lights went out. Epilogue. They say memory is just a story we tell ourselves over and over until it feels real. But what if someone else starts telling it for you? What if they make it better, cleaner, more watchable? Would you notice, or would you thank them? Somewhere, a laptop flickers to life. A new upload. No title. No description. Just a thumbnail. The theater. Empty. Except for one seat. And a name. Elliot Rhodes. Runtime, 51 scenes. Loop enabled. Viewer discretion advised.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.